I was asked to make some signs for a local business, and they had some older signs that were in place, and they just wanted them updated. We discussed a few options, possibly just engraving the sign into wood and painting the recessed letters a different color from the actual board that they're cut out of. And we also talked about doing some LED backlight signs. That's what they ended up deciding. You can see the old signs here. And what we ended up doing was just duplicating the size, because they were going in the same or a very similar place to where the previous signs were. We were kind of limited on size restrictions. So we duplicated the size and changed up the look a little bit. I tried to use the same font that they used. I looked online and found something that matched fairly close, so that everything was going to be very similar. It was just going to be a little bit more modernized version of the sign. So you can see the updated sign here, and now we're going to show you how we did it. I began by cutting the boards out to the size they needed to be, and then I also painted them black. That was going to be the base color for everything for the exterior of these signs. Now, I did have a challenge with these signs because the size of the sign was larger than the cutting capabilities of my machine. So I had to come up with a different way to do things. So my solution was to establish an origin point at the end of the board that's closest to us right now. That would be the start point for the left half of the sign, and then for the last word in the sign, I just came up with a set distance from this endpoint to that word. That was actually ended up being 23 inches, so I had a measurement of 23 inches set on my board where I was going to start the next cut. I can show exactly how this is done in a future video. I'm just going to mark that right there, and then that will give me where the 23 inch needs to be for the next portion. So I can loosen this up and slide it. Okay, so nothing else has changed, so I should be able to just start this new job. I'm going to turn the power rack on. Once I moved the board to the new origin point, I just resumed with the second portion of the cut and finished this thing up. I did have to cut tabs in the back, and these held the letters in place. If you don't do that, they can bust free and actually break your bit. So once the board came out of the machine, I had to cut those tabs out, and I used a file and just kind of cleaned up the edges on the inside a little bit where there were some bad spots. I wanted the inside of these boxes to be white, one for contrast for the back, but I also wanted the back side of the lettering here to be white to provide good reflection of light for the LED light strips that are going to go inside. So I also wanted the interior part of the letters to be white. So I decided to mask this off from the front, and then I was just going to paint the back with some white spray paint, and hoping that that'll cover everything I needed adequately. So I like to be open with you guys on this channel, and just go, if I have a problem, I'm going to tell you what it was so that you don't encounter the same thing. We had some problems with this sign. I had extreme difficulty with the paint. I painted the exterior black per the customer's request, and then everything behind it was going to be white. So as I was cutting this out, I decided that the inside edge of the letters should all also be white. And so my thought was to mask everything off on the front side after I have it painted black, and then come with on the back side with a can of white spray paint and just hit that whole back with white spray paint, making sure I get inside the letters, and then peeling the mask off the front, and should be good to go. Didn't quite work that way. So the masking tape I used was not a very good quality, and it left a little bit of a residue in some spots. So that was problem number one. I really was not happy, especially because it was going to be the exterior surface. I was really not happy with the quality of finish that I had after I peeled the tape back. Problem number two was that some of the paint from the white paint from the back bled through the tape line on the front. So now I didn't have very nice lettering on the front. So it really was a big problem and actually caused multiple repaints. My solution was to get my sander out and actually lightly sand the entire front. I wanted to get that sticky residue that was left behind from the tape off. I also needed to get that white paint off as much as I could before I repainted over everything. So I sanded that, got it down how I wanted it, and then repainted the entire exterior black again. Now, what this ended up doing, of course, was messing up the inside of my letters where they were white, but now they had kind of a black tint to them because of that paint. And so what I opted to do, rather than chasing myself with this constantly, was to actually get a paintbrush, a small paintbrush, and some white paint. And I actually hand painted the inside of the letters the entire way around both signs. This was a lot of work. I probably would not do it like this again. I would just paint it all the same color and go with it. It just really wasn't worth the time I had to put into it. But I already had said that was what I was going to do, and I was committed to it, so I had to see it through. So, lesson learned. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes as well. I'm going to put the back on right now. I applied a bead of glue. I'm actually going to apply a little bit more. What we're going to do is glue it down, and also going to screw it down. I have some 1-inch screws that won't go through the other side. Because this is hanging on the wall, I want it to be nice and sturdy. So it's going to set like this. Once I have this in place, I can start applying the lights. And then attach the back, and these will be done and ready to be delivered. So anytime you're drilling through something, it's a good idea to mark your bit. So I'm drilling some pilot holes for these screws so they don't split the wood. I definitely do not want to go through the front side, so I'm going to take a piece of tape, just tear that off. I'm just holding the screw up to the drill bit. So like that, just to get a depth amount. I don't want to go past the blue. I actually really don't even want to go to the blue, just maybe slightly, stop slightly before. All right, I need to cut a little groove in here to allow the cord to go out. So I'm gonna do that, and then
we'll run the lights. You can see I'm using the Govee RGBIC strip lights. These things are amazing. I've had them in other videos. Highly recommend. There'll be a link in the comments so you can figure out where to get these.
I still had the interior part of each letter that I needed to attach. There's only really two ways to do this. Either you have to reattach the interior part or you turn these letters into stencils. I didn't really want to make the stenciled look. So what I actually do is I glued an extra piece on the back of each center so that it would account for the dead space behind the front board and bring that out to the same depth as the outer area. And then the way I line them up is I actually just use the letter that I cut out as a guide, set it in there, place the center of that letter in where it would belong and try to line it up the best I can. And then I just simply play a little game of operation and use some needle nose pliers to pull out the letter that I didn't want to stay in there. I was always terrible at operations, so this part of it isn't the most fun, but I managed to make it look the way I wanted it to, and everything lined up really nicely. As you can see, one of the great things about these Govee lights is there are endless options on what the light will look like. So we have a few different just samples of the dozens and dozens of the ways you could actually set these up. So it's one of the things I really like is they're so highly customizable, easily done through an app on your phone, and I highly recommend using them if you ever need LED lights.
So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. I would love to hear from you down in the comments. So if you could leave a comment, something you enjoyed, something you learned, maybe an idea for a way to do it better, because I'm always open to better ways to do things, or anything like that. I'd just love to hear from you, get some feedback. Hit the like button and the subscribe button. Ring the little bell so you get notified when we have new videos. And it'd be great if you watch one of these videos that are going to come up on the next screen. We'll see you next time.